Hey guys, so in our office today we've got Anthony from Gearbox and Joel from 2K Australia.
Hey.
How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
So you're here to show us Borderlands, a pre-sequel, which is coming out pretty soon here. Can you talk to me about how the kind of different setting you have in the game, and the different sort of period compared to the other Borderlands games allows you to create different gameplay experience, different story experiences?
Sure, well, as the name suggests, this game is actually set in between Borderlands 1 and 2. And we're leaving Pandora for the first time ever. We're going up to Elpis, which is the moon that you see, and also that Hyperion space station, for the first time we're ever going there. Not only is it a new setting and new enemies, all that kind of stuff, but it really did allow us to bring some new gameplay by bringing this moon promise to the game, so low gravity and low atmosphere. And the really big thing that changes the core gameplay loop is this low gravity, because it allows you to do these massive jumps and these slams down to the ground with this new piece of kit called the Oz kit, which allows you to augment it, do slam down to the ground, do area of effect, electrocute people, jump over enemies, invalidate their cover. Also allows you just to navigate the space a lot quicker, get up way higher and traverse much faster. We of course have new enemies with the scabs, who are these X-Dial engineers who can use the low gravity as well, so they can jump and flush you out of cover and do slam attacks. We have guys with jetpacks flying around all over the place. Really, it's more high sci-fi than the previous Borderlands games, just because it was fun to go to the moon, sort of go into space and bring in, low gravity and guys with jetpacks and lasers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, quite simply, it's just more fun than Borderlands 2 in terms of sheer gunplay, because Borderlands 2 is cool, but it's also a game about cover and making sure you don't expose yourself to enemy fire and stuff. And because of the low gravity and the double jumping and the butt slamming and stuff like that, pre-sequel is much more a game about just making sure you're always moving and stopping your enemies from fighting you, whether that's slamming them so they get stunned for a bit or freezing them with the cryo weapons or any of that kind of stuff. It's a much more active kind of combat thing. And as somebody who generally doesn't like to use cover because I find it boring, I can play all of pre-sequel and never use cover and really, really enjoy it. It's hard to actually go back to Borderlands 2 after playing pre-sequel for as long as I have.
So, something I've always liked about Borderlands is how expressive the enemies are, and they sort of have funny lines that they say as they're dying or as they're coming after you. They'll have interesting death animations. Can you talk about the design of that, or how that's expressed in the sort of the theme and the setting here?
Well, dialogue-wise and setting-wise, we thought it would be cool if the moon kind of felt like, if Pandora is America, then the moon should be Australia. So the writers of 2K Australia, Maurice Suckling and Merrick Walton, basically made sure that every character that's native to the moon is speaking an Australian accent. So they'll say things that a dumb American like me would never fully understand, but it sort of adds to the whole, the flavor of the...
There was one I heard the other day. There's so many lines, death lines in there. They just cycle and you hear them differently different times. But one of the scabs that I killed died, and he goes, "Oh, bury me with a beer in my hand," which is something like a really kind of bogan, which is kind of like a redneck.
Okay.
Like an Australian redneck.
I'm learning so much.
Would say. So yeah, there's plenty of Australianisms and everything, and it started off just as kind of this funny thing and something to make it feel different, but it went further to make it into kind of this completely different culture that's on the moon. It is a new setting, it's a new type of enemies, it's new people up there. They've kind of been separated from the Dahl Corporation for a long time, so they've gone a little bit stir crazy, and some of the guys in the Gearbox office have made fun of us, saying they kind of been left on a colony and abandoned, some of them convicts as well. But,
yeah, can't imagine if there are any real life parallels to that whatsoever.
And you guys have completely new characters that are playable, 4 of them, I guess, and Claptrap's one of them. Can you talk about the design of Claptrap, what makes him interesting to play, how is his personality expressed in gameplay?
Well, Claptrap was one of these really interesting characters for us to make, because there's a lot of pressure on us, because he's kind of this fan favorite. He's loved and he's kind of hated a little bit by some people.
Fan favorite, enormous quotation.
He's well known, at least.
Yeah.
People know of Claptrap. So we couldn't phone it in, and we needed to design. We couldn't just make him this really badass, awesome character that all of a sudden becomes a superhero with just amazing powers. We need to design him with his personality in hand. And his action skill is called VaultHunter.exe. It's a piece of beta software that Jack installs onto Claptrap to try and make him into a Vault Hunter, and we explain how that happens in the game as well. And what it does is, when you activate it, it analyzes the situation and it tries to come up with something that's going to be useful. And sometimes it isn't so obviously useful. Sometimes it is the rubber ducky, where everyone in the team gets rubber ducky around them and they bounce around the environment, which could seem annoying, but when you're in low gravity and you have this slam attack, if you're bouncing around high and slam all over the place, basically you're just doing this area of effect attack on everyone. Other times you get Minion Trap, which is like his version of Axe in this little Claptrap with a turret that shoots rockets out everywhere. Other times you'll get Clap in the Box, where he gets a giant bomb that's going to explode after an amount of time. It's chaotic and it's random. It's kind of exciting playing as Claptrap or playing with Claptrap in your party, because every time you activate, you hear this little sound where he's analyzing it, it's choosing what it's going to do, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's always a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, your butt kind of tightens when you hear the action noise. You're like, oh, please not something bad. But it does. It's one of those nice things where the dudes balanced. Tommy Westerman and Jonathan Hemingway were two the lead designers on Claptrap, and they balanced it nicely so that even though he's a character that's inherently about chaos and randomness and stuff, you're generally still getting something good out of him. Like I hate Claptrap as a character. I hate writing for him. I hate hearing his dialogue. I hate all that stuff. But I still really, really like playing as him because he's a very different combat loop for a Borderlands character. You always sort of know what you're going to have happen when you play as any other character in Borderlands, but Claptrap, you honestly just don't know any given time. And that means you have to very quickly improvise and change the way you might have been doing your combat in a really satisfying way.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones is going through the gun subroutines, which Claptrap has. It's kind of his most advanced skill tree, and this it cycles through these software subroutines for Claptrap, where he'll become more proficient in pistols or assault rifles or melee or any particular type of weapon, and it comes up on screen saying pistol subroutine activated, and it forces you to change that type of weapon to become more effective. And usually if I have a really awesome weapon, I'll stick to it in Borderlands, but this actually forces me to change through and pick my weapons, which is actually really good, because otherwise I'm not just playing boring and sticking to the same weapon. So I actually play Borderlands differently when I play as Claptrap.
So one of the things we like about Borderlands, of course, is it doesn't take itself too seriously. Wondering if you guys have a greater thought on just the state of comedy in games, the state of games having a sense of humor.
I wish more games were comedies, because I think most games, when you look at them in terms of their mechanical components, are inherently really funny. I think with the exception of games that are about consequence or about despair, like something like XCOM, where when you lose a soldier, you actually feel really, really bad. With the exception of those and things like Walking Dead, where you're sort of going through a story, I think you look at the average game that's about killing millions of people, and the two directions you can take it are either like, this is the most serious thing that's ever happened, and I'm doing it for terrorism or my wife or whatever the hell, or to just go like, this is kind of the worst thing that's ever, like if this had ever happened in real life, then people would go, ah, and think that was the most horrifying thing that had ever happened, so you just make it kind of self-parody. And like, Borderlands isn't full-on like Naked Gun parody, I don't think, but it also understands that we are inherently asking you to do a thing which is by all definitions monstrous, and that is kind of what makes it fun. So it kind of hopefully has kind of a snarky anti-heroic tone to it that's like, basically the way we got away with making an entire game where you're only playing as villains from other Borderlands games and Claptrap is because that is baked into the DNA of all the way back to the first game, which I didn't even work on, is the idea that, yeah, you're kind of just being a shitty person, you're stealing guns off of dead people, and your ultimate goal is never like, oh, save the world. It's like, I don't know, kill that guy because he's a dick, or like open that door because there might be like loot behind it. And I think that kind of comedy and that kind of like, kind of attitude is way more honest to what the gameplay of most, at least AAA video games is. I would certainly love to see more games try to do comedy.
Yeah, so just sort of embrace what you're doing as not totally dissonant from the storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Saints Row did the exact same thing, where they tried to be serious for about 1.5 games and then went, fuck it, this doesn't even make sense, and then embraced what their gameplay was basically saying to them all along, and that's why it's one of my favorite series of games. Making
your character into a crazy superhero who's the president and aliens are invaded.
Yeah, it's a natural extension of, stealing a car from someone.
Exactly. So Borderlands has a long history of extending the story through DLC. I wonder if you guys can talk about kind of what you're interested in exploring further, if you guys indeed have plans to extend the pre-sequel DLC.
Well, I think we went gold just a couple weeks ago. Everyone's kind of taking holiday time. I just took a week off just before, but now is the time for us to start thinking about what we want to do with DLC. I think there's still more stories to be told, some still cool stuff to explore. I think we might want to explore some characters as well. We don't really have anything too specific as we're nailing it down, but yeah, I think we definitely want to spend some more time with these characters, particularly these playable characters, and explore what goes on in the moon, because yeah, there's 5 years between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, still a story to explore.
So for the folks who have played every piece of Borderlands, they've downloaded all the DLC, what can you sort of tell them to sell them on the pre-sequel as a unique, distinct, new experience?
Well, I'll say for me, for the previous 2 games, I've just been a fan. I've been working on BioShock before. This is the first Borderlands game I've worked on, and it feels really fresh to me. Just that core loop of kind of, especially I usually play as Athena, and I really love getting that shield out, jumping above enemies, absorbing their damage, throwing it, and then slamming down on them. And you know, they say a lot of the time it's about getting that 10-second core combat loop in a game, and then you kind of got it. And for me, that is just perfect. I love going to that in every single encounter, and it feels totally different to Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2. And it has all of the really great systems of building up your characters. It's got the really great writing. I think kind of extending on the writing, Anthony's writing combined with Maurice and Marek back in Australia, it just, you know, I think it's just hilarious. Especially I love working together with Gearbox on this, because there are some missions that I haven't been so involved with, and I'm not so familiar, and I'm playing ones which you know, I haven't been involved with the design or the writing of, and I'm just laughing and enjoying them as well. There's a lot of fan service as well, as someone who's played the other games. I think people are really going to enjoy kind of seeing where characters started from and where they ended up, kind of telling that story between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2.
I would say 3 things. I would say, firstly, the combat's way more fun and fast. Secondly, your character talks more in the story, so we're sort of scaling up what we're doing in terms of narrative stuff. If you play as 2 different characters through the same stretch of the game, you'll get different dialogue that happens. And thirdly, there are no internet memes. We got rid of all of them.
Cut completely from Borderlands.
As far as I know. If not, they should have been bugged and sent to me.
Sounds great. All right, well, thanks for talking to us, guys.
Thank you.